Have you ever been somewhere where the rules were really different? In this episode of our secret season, we'll take you to the Netherlands. You're listening to Travel FOMO, a podcast for people self-diagnosed with wanderlust.
Welcome to Travel FOMO. I'm Hilarie Houghton, and I'm here with my better half, Jamin.
What up? We're in the middle of what we like to call a secret season. But before we get started, do us a favor and take a second to rate, review, and subscribe to the Travel FOMO podcast from wherever you're listening. This secret season is a behind-the-scenes look at the trip that really turned you on to traveling, right?
Yes. Oh my goodness, for sure. My sister and I backpack across 9 countries in Europe, and we're going to let all of our listeners in on our walk down memory lane. That's what we've been doing this season.
Very cool. I'm excited for this episode. So let's get right into the interview and check it out.
Perfect. All right, guys, thanks for joining us again. We are back. I have my sister, Jessica Giles, here. Say hi, Jess.
Hello, everyone.
We are continuing this journey from 2005. We're taking you on our journey through Europe, and we stayed there for a month and really enjoyed a lot of different countries. And in this episode, the country we're going to talk about is the Netherlands. It's also known as Holland. Jessica, is there anything specific about the Netherlands that really stuck out to you as we kind of, I think we just hit up Holland, and then Amsterdam. Is there anything that stuck out right off the bat?
Everyone rode their bikes, and you would like cross bridges, like because there'd be the canal, and you go over the little walkway as we're like moseying on throughout the city. We'd go over these bridges, and I mean, like they would just be not just like lined with bikes, like it would be bikes on top of bikes on top of bikes. It would just be like stacked all along, and which is cool. I just thought, oh man, like everyone gets their exercise here. But,
well, and there were so many rivers, it's almost like there weren't enough roads, so it's like you kind of, it's easier to ride your bike.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So crazy.
And we didn't get to be here very long either. I mean, this was like a very short trip. This was like here for a couple of hours maybe.
Right. And I think we hit up 2 cities in one day.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. And it was a Sunday, it ended up being a bit of a bummer because it was May 15th, 2005. And we first stopped in Haarlem, Holland because we wanted to catch Corie Ten Boom's museum. And we were like super excited about it, but we should have known that Corie Ten Boom is a Christian woman and her museum is closed on Sunday.
Yep.
So we literally arrived and we took a picture of the sign that says closed. And we're like, oh, no.
Oh, gosh.
But just a reminder, guys, this was before smartphones. So we were literally just trying to make sure we hit up the same cities that we'd planned. We didn't have a lot of opportunity to research everything. So that was...
And we're trying to do this on a budget, you know? We're like college kids. Because I think, if I recall correctly, like we really did pay for this with cash. Like we paid for it ahead of time. We saved up the money. We didn't put any of it on credit unless maybe it was an emergency along the way. But we brought a credit card for emergencies, but we actually did pay for it ahead of time. But with that, like when you're traveling to all these different countries, you know, we had this Eurail train pass that let us go to all these different countries throughout Europe. But you don't want to do a lot of like backtracking. Like, okay, well, we went here and now we're crossing over here, because you're using time. You're losing hours when you backtrack and go to all these. So we're trying to kind of like make a circle through Europe and like use the best use of our time as we go through. But yeah, definitely that hitting that on Sunday is like, oh man, didn't think that through.
Yeah, for sure. And to just clarify for people, we had been through England and Paris and then Belgium, and then we're hitting up the Netherlands, and man, we were getting pretty far north. It was getting chilly. It was starting to, we were in an environment that was a little chillier than the chilliest of our trip, really. And we went on to Anne Frank's house in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Which was really cool, totally worth it. I wish I would have had more time to even stick it out a little longer and really
Yeah.
enjoy it more. But at a certain point, you've seen a lot of museums, and so it's kind
True.
of hard to like to really pace yourself through them. But yeah,
The
what did you
Anne
think of?
Frank house,
Yeah.
that man, that they I'm just looking back at the pictures, and like I remember the stair, they have these little stairs. They were the little steps were just so small. It just seemed
Mhm.
everything just seemed like, oh my gosh, they lived here. They lived in this like tiny space.
Yeah.
Like a bookcase for a door, bookcase hiding their little hiding place. And it just seemed so like cramped. I mean, when you think of being there for years, I don't remember how many years, but I'm pretty sure it was like years plural, a couple years at least. And I just remember thinking or maybe it was a year, just over a year. I mean, even if it was just over a year, that's a long time to be
Right.
in a little bitty space. There was like 5 or 6 of them that had to hide in this. And I just can't imagine being so like cramped and that not being able to go outside. I mean, we
Yeah.
think quarantine is bad. Can you
Yeah.
imagine not being able to go outside? And
It's so crazy.
it
I've
is
actually thought
crazy.
a lot about Anne Frank and a lot about her house amidst quarantine. I guess I kept thinking quarantine was going to get that bad. Like it was going to be like war times and we're going to all be in hiding. It's just it's a good reminder that like it's somebody else has always had it worse. It's never like my situation is the worst experience, somebody else has always lived out something that was harder.
She's got some pretty amazing quotes, Anne Frank.
Mm.
Like she's got one quote that I love her perspective on life through the middle of this crisis. Like that crisis, wow, that was like very much a downplay, I feel like, of that whole huge event. But I mean, World War II as a whole and everything that they were going through, she has this one quote that says, it's amazing, or I'm kind of paraphrasing this, but she says, it's it's amazing that people don't need to wait a single moment to make the world better. Like that it's at any
Wow.
opportunity you can, with your kindness and love. And then I think she also said something, again, I'm going to paraphrase, but that deep down she really does believe that like people are good. And I'm like,
Mhm.
wow, after all that
Wow.
she has seen,
Right.
she's literally in hiding for her life and from people, and
That's
she
amazing.
still can make that statement that deep down, I really do believe that people are good. I thought
Yeah.
that's powerful,
Yeah.
to be able to see beyond what other people are showing you and to be able to
Right.
see, okay, there is good there somewhere.
Right.
Maybe really deep down, but there's the potential for good. So
Especially coming from her. It's really cool.
from her, yeah.
Mhm. That's awesome. What else do you remember about Amsterdam?
Well, a lot of cheese.
A lot of
No,
cheese, a lot
just
of weed.
that was gonna be my next thing. I remember us not not necessarily, it wasn't when we were there. It was actually when we had just left. And I think when we were headed on to Germany, we met someone and he was like, oh, do you want some hash? Or did you get some hash? Or something like that, because we had been to Amsterdam. And we were
Mhm.
like, didn't even cross my mind. But I'm like, well,
Yeah.
now I know. Like,
Yeah.
okay, apparently it was all around me and I didn't realize. But
That's funny. I did realize that was on my list of things that I would do if I went back. I was like, man, I would have smoked some pot. Because at the time, that was 15 years ago, it wasn't legal anywhere in the US, I don't think. Um,
no,
but
not that I'm aware of.
I was starting a new job as soon as we arrived back to the US. I was supposed to start a new job within like a day or two. And so I was like, there is like no good that could come from this. But yeah, I feel like the older I get, the more relaxed I get, where I'm like, it's probably not gonna kill me. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but also I was pretty paranoid. Like I was kind of the one that was like always like, no, don't do that. Oh, we can't do that. Oh, we can't do that. And I kind of loosened up as the trip went on, but man, in the beginning it was I was like I wanted all my senses, and I didn't want
yeah.
to,
Yeah.
give any of that up. But did you have a favorite memory in the Netherlands?
I think I did enjoy the Anne Frank museum, probably the best. Or I don't know if you'd call it,
Yeah.
did they call it a museum?
Yeah.
Again, we got pictures and we shouldn't have. That was when we had to move through so fast because we had to get out to a train that was like coming through. We only had this really tight time frame. And so
right.
we had to wait in line for a long time. And then when we finally got in, everyone's walking, so they've waited so long, so they're not gonna rush, and we're like, we have no option but to rush. So okay, this is a really cool, okay, wow. And then they went to the next room. We kind of had to hightail it through there. So I think I probably would have done that again and just allowed myself to soak it in a little bit more. I know it because it is so sobering, and it is so I hate that it has to be so sobering, but not all historical moments are, just wonderful and happy. And so just allowing myself to like appreciate that more and what she went through, what they went through, and what they contributed to the world and their stories, and just honoring them maybe a little bit more in that moment. So I think that's probably I enjoyed it the most, but I could have enjoyed it even more, I feel like. So I would have stayed longer in that.
Yeah, I would definitely, that's on my list of things that I would do again. Like I would just repeat that. And then one of my favorite memories was actually when we were about to hop on the train and we arrived at this cheese shop. And it was like, it sounds crazy, but it was just like, we don't see these kind of cheese shops here in America. And it was just
Not
like
at all.
a whole boutique, or I say boutique, but like a whole, small shop that was just mounds and mounds of these different types of cheese that you just can't find hardly anywhere. And and we bought some cheese. We bought a rubber container to go in it, and I think we bought some bread. Yeah, we did, and we really did. We like held on to that cheese and would eat that cheese and bread for another couple days. Yeah,
and it was good.
Yeah, for sure.
European cheese is good. It's not it's funny what we get used to over here. Like some cheese isn't even real cheese over here. It's like, man, they had some good cheese.
Yeah, for sure.
You know how to make it.
Is there anything that you wish you had done that you didn't do?
I don't think that I don't wish I had done it then, but if I went back, I probably would try some hash as well.
You would
partake in the goods. I would, because awesome. I have also relaxed as getting older, and like honestly, at the time, I think it's probably a good thing that we didn't, because it was new to us. We did need all of our senses. We did need to be as responsible as possible.
Yeah.
And but like I would probably go back, and I don't know if I did. I don't know. I mean, like, hash is different, weed is different, and there's, from what I understand, there's different strengths and all that. So like, not have ever trying it from over there, like it could be really strong. So I would probably be like, want to be with at least my husband or someone else that doesn't get high. You know what I mean? Like as because that's kind of my take from like scripture is like being sober is like, it's not just because like, well, don't have any fun. It's like, it's a responsibility thing. It's a protecting and guarding yourself. And when you don't have all your senses, then you're vulnerable to making mistakes and regrets and stuff. And so that would be my takeaway. That is what I would do. I would responsibly partake in hash. Sorry, Mom and Dad.
Mom and Dad, you don't have to listen to all of this. The trip gets worse. It's awesome. There's a reason it's taken us 15 years to tell the stories. Just kidding. Oh man. Well, I love it.
So you got to see the actual Anne Frank house.
Yeah.
So tell us what you know about her.
Yeah. For those of you who aren't familiar, but I'm sure most everyone is, Anne Frank basically was a Jew that went into hiding during the Holocaust. And what a lot of people don't know is that she was in Amsterdam. And that's where her home is. And so you can go back to that very home where she went into hiding with her parents, her sister, and some other people in need of a safe hiding place. And she almost survived the war there. And at one point they were captured. But she also wrote in a diary all that time. So it's very well documented. The home is well documented in her diaries and her journals, but then also just the very it's really crazy because you can read the book and you hear about it and you hear about all these tiny little details, and then you get to go into the home and see those details for yourself. And it was pretty cool.
So it is pretty well preserved, like the way it was when she was in hiding there.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell that they knew it was special. Yeah, like the staircase, you can see the staircase, I believe it's behind a bookcase or something. So you enter this museum through this tiny, tiny, steep staircase because it was hiding. It was a hiding place.
Hidden behind a bookcase.
Yeah, it's probably the tiniest museum, now that I think about it, that I've ever been to. It's pretty amazing.
And clarify for those who might not know, who is Corie Ten Boom?
Yeah, Corie Ten Boom has a great story as well. And it is Corie Ten Boom. So forgive me if I misspeak, but she actually was a Dutch woman and a watchmaker, actually, who put people into hiding, Jews during the Holocaust, hid them to save them from the Nazis. And so she basically cared for so many people to keep them alive during the Holocaust. Very courageous, very, very courageous.
You and Jessica are in Amsterdam. And especially back then, so this was in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
So rules around drugs and prostitution, things like that, very different than what's in the United States.
At the time, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And
so,
still.
Yeah. And in many aspects still, like drugs less so, but...
prostitution.
Yeah, definitely. So what's it like to be someplace where the rules are very different from what you're used to?
Yeah. Well, we are rule followers, my sister and I, so it probably put me more on edge even than her, being the older sister, but I think depending on who you are, it can put you on edge. I was starting a new job when I returned home, so I wasn't going to partake in any of the things that were legal in that moment because I wanted to keep my new job. But I would say it can be unnerving because rules make you feel safe, right?
Right.
And so when you are placed in an area where the rules have changed, you are hyper aware of how unsafe you feel, because when those rules change, society changes. And I'm not saying we had any bad experiences. We actually did not, but we were only there for a few hours as well. But when the rules change, the lines are blurred, right? So you're like suddenly like aware that the prostitution is legal and that a lot of people who come there, that's a highlight for them, right? It's
right.
That's a big highlight for them. Or marijuana, which at the time in America was not legal.
Right.
So that was a pretty big deal. So you can tell that people are they're not going to be themselves because they're going to be under the influence. And you can also tell that they're coming prepared to do things that they wouldn't normally be allowed to do. And I think for me, those things can be like a little unnerving, just the mentality that people are in when they... I wouldn't say for the society as a whole. I would say for in regard to the idea that like people come seeking out... new rules, tourists come wanting to go beyond boundaries that
right.
have been presented to them in their own country.
So for the people that live there and function within that, it's their rules that they've grown up with, and so they're operating business as usual.
Right.
Like, but for outsiders coming in, it's all of a sudden this like a bunch of restrictions are lifted, and so it's like, well, what can I do? What like
Yeah.
it's more of a like you're going wild all of a sudden.
Right. It's like Vegas on steroids, right? Because
Right.
you get to do everything and more than you would in Vegas. And I think for me, like when I think about, as some people would argue that only a couple of rules changed, and you're like, yeah, but society behaves differently with different rules. And so when those clear rules have changed, what about other unspoken rules? Have they changed? Are there just behaviors that are more acceptable here? I don't know. I just find that to be kind of fascinating and a really good question, actually.
Yeah, that it's really interesting to consider what it's like when the norms are lifted.
Mm-hmm.
And how different people respond to that differently.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we were not, as everybody could tell by Jessica and I talking, like we were not there, to do anything crazy. We truly, it was Anne Frank's house probably more than anything that got us to Amsterdam. So, and just, wanting to see what it was like. And it was really interesting to go past all of the, the marijuana bars and, places you could buy brownies and, all kinds of stuff, There was just very accessible. But again, I will repeat, like, although I was nervous, I didn't have any bad experiences. That's not where my credit card was stolen. That's not, where where we felt like we were in danger. So it's kind of interesting. It's very interesting, actually.
Well, that wraps up this episode. Thank you for joining us for the Travel FOMO podcast. Don't forget, we want to hear from you. Have you been to Amsterdam or anywhere else where the rules were a little bit different than what you're used to? Post some photos on social media and tag us. You'll find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. That's where we will be sharing photos from our own adventures. And you can also follow up on us and learn more about us at travelfomopodcast.com.
That's right, and next week, Jessica and I will take you on our journey through Germany, from the lively streets of Berlin to the more somber confines of the Dachau concentration camp. It's packed full of, we've got a lot of stuff on Germany. It's interesting.
Looking forward to it. If you enjoyed this podcast, help others find us. You can do that by taking time to rate, review, and subscribe to the Travel FOMO podcast from wherever you're listening.
Life is short, guys.
Wander well.